Hello everybody. I hope you're all doing really well. We're going to be doing some more post-processing today with some of our viewers or membership participants. And Alistair has sent me over two images from his membership, and I've sent over two images from my membership. So why don't we get stuck right into the images that Alistair sent me, and then we'll compare our results and see where we've differed in our processing. All right, let's get right into this. All right, so this first image is really interesting. This is from Ken Salome, and I just absolutely love the patterns in this. There's such great textures, and of course the little leaf there. I'm not sure if Ken put the leaf there or not, but it looks like he found it like this because it has this this neat kind of ice formation below it there. So there isn't an awful lot that we need to do to this photograph other than just brighten things up a little bit and add a bit of contrast. All the things that I just love to do because, ideally I want to spend as least amount of time behind Photoshop or Lightroom as possible. So let's just get right into this. Now, today I'm not using Lightroom. I'm using the raw file module in Photoshop. I just thought I'd try something a little bit different here. So as far as temperature goes, well, because we're using ice, or we have a picture of ice, I'm going to keep it relatively cool. The tint, now let's just play around with this a little bit. I think 10 is probably fine, because if we go too far this way, it starts to get green, and of course if we go this way too much, it starts to get a little bit magenta. Exposure. Now let's just zoom in on this leaf here, and I'm just going to look at the histogram up here. Just bring up the exposure just a little bit there. Now the contrast, I'm actually going to flatten this out just a little bit. I'll add contrast in later. Highlights, I think the highlights are fine because we don't want to blow that leaf out. Ideally, what I'd like to do is bring more details out in the ice. Same with the whites. I don't want to blow those whites out at all. We're a long way from blowing those out. Texture, we can certainly add a little bit of texture. And that's about it, really. Let's see here. Optics. We can remove chromatic aberration. I'll just zoom out here. I might actually crop this a little bit as well, but we'll see how that goes. All right, so we'll just open that in Photoshop and we'll just go from there. Okay, so for my uses, I really like the 4:5 format. So there's nothing wrong with this aspect ratio. I just prefer 4:5. So I'm going to crop this to 4:5. And let's see here, probably around maybe something like that. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay, and the first thing I want to do is just get rid of some of these little flecks here. They're not a huge deal, but might as well. We have a cloning tool, so we might as well get rid of those. I'll just use the spot healing tool, I think. So I'm just going to zoom in here and just give these a quick going over. There's that one there. Oops, sorry. I'm putting this on a different layer. So sample layers, you've got to click that box there. There we go. So we'll just have a quick look for all those little spots. Just the white ones, really, they're a little bit distracting. I mean, I'm not so fussy that I'm going to get rid of every single little spot. It's nice to have, you know, a few imperfections in there. Everything doesn't have to be perfect all the time. Let's get rid of this little one here, this one here. Okay, I think that'll do it. Get rid of this little one here. I think we'll leave that one. Whoops. Maybe this one here. All right, let's just zoom out here. So what I'd like to do is really brighten up the whites or the patterns in this without affecting the leaf too much. And there's a number of ways we can do that. I think in this case, what I'll do is just go to adjustments. I'm just going to zoom in here. And I'm going to grab a curves layer. And I'm just going to put some spots on. You'll notice as I click this, you'll get these little markers that form on the diagonal line here. So what I'm going to do is, I just have two there. Once I've established all the dark points, because I don't really want to affect the shadows or the dark areas too much, I just want to bring up the highlights. So by doing this, what I can do is when I drag up the highlights here, the highlights are up at the top, shadows at the bottom. When I drag up the highlights area, it shouldn't affect the shadows too much. It just brighten up the bright areas. See that? So as I bring that line up, if I bring it up really high, you can see that the blacks aren't affected at all. It's just the highlights. And we don't want to brighten it up too much. Now, if I zoom out, you'll notice that all of a sudden the bright or the ice has really been, those textures have really come out. Now, unfortunately, when you do it this way, it affects the whole image. So what we want to do now is we can either make this into a black layer and just paint this effect in, or we could just paint out the effect in areas that we don't want. So, I mean, in areas where we don't want that effect. So it's probably easier just to show you. As it is now, the effect is global. And we have a white mask on there. So remember, white reveals, black conceals. So what we could do is we could just get a brush, B for brush, and black layer, and then just adjust the opacity to maybe, I don't know, 50% or so. And we could paint out the areas where we don't want that effect. So say we don't want it on this leaf here. All I have to do, just adjust the paintbrush here, we'll soften it up a bit. I can just start painting that leaf and it'll start masking the effect out of that area. Which in this case is probably the easiest way to do this, because that's really the only spot that I really want to take that effect away. I don't want to brighten up that leaf. If anything, I want to darken it a little bit. So if we go over to here, to the mask, you can see that that's the area that I've masked out. And if I click on the eye here, you can just see that it's affected the outside. Now I think this might be a little bit strong, so I'm just going to bring the opacity down just a little bit, not too much. And I'm almost done. I mean, all I want to do now is I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, how can I enhance this to the point where it looks better than the original raw file without overdoing it and making it look worse than the raw file. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a little bit of dodging and burning. So I'm just going to grab a new layer here, and I'm going to pick soft light, and I've already got my brush, and then I'm just going to make sure I've got black paint. I'm going to bring this down to roughly 10%, and I'm just going to enlarge my brush just a little bit, and I'm just going to darken this corner just a tad, and the top here, and around here, and then just a little bit down here, like so. Remember, we're trying to direct a viewer's eye to the most important part of the photograph, and for me, it's definitely the leaf and this bit here, and that crack in that ice. Darken our leaf just a little bit more. Just going to zoom in here. Just going to create another layer, and we'll go with soft light again. This time I'm going to use a white paintbrush, and I'm just going to brighten up this area just a little bit more, like so. Perhaps this bit here. Just zoom out. All right, so let's just group these together. Command G or Control, I think that's Control G on a PC, and you can see all of the effects that we've done on this image. And actually, what I'm going to do here, let's just have a look here. We'll go back to, oh, we don't have a curve, a levels. So we've just got adjustments. These blacks here are looking just a little bit too dark. So I'm just going to grab a levels. And I'm just going to bring this slider, not this one, this will add contrast, but this bottom slider here will reduce contrast. Something like that. Just zoom out again. Okay, I think I'm going to brighten this up even more, this section here. This was our dodge layer. I'm just going to bring that in again. Just brighten it up just a little bit more. Bit here. Just bring that brush down just a little bit. I seem to have lost my my pointer tool. I'm not really sure why it's disappeared. Just helps you see where I'm actually doing some of the work here. I'll have to look into that. Bit here. And I think that's it. Just add a little bit more saturation to the blues here. So what I've done is I've opened up the saturation panel, and I've clicked on this little hand with the arrows, and if you click on the area that you want to bring up the saturation, it'll show you the color that you're going to be affecting. So there's cyans and blues. So that's cyan, blues. I'll just bring that up a little bit. And this color here, yellows, we can bring those up a little bit too. Definitely not that much. All right, And there we go. Beautiful image, very simple. Like I said, some images you really don't need to do an awful lot to them. And I could have even simplified this even more, perhaps just add a little bit of contrast and a little bit of dodging and burning. But you know, if you really want to finesse things, then it's not a bad idea to bring them into Lightroom or Photoshop and just tweak them just a little bit to bring the best out of your images. All right, on to the next photograph.